Welcome to Shaped by Faith with your host, Theresa Rowe. To find out more about Shaped by Faith and Theresa Rowe, please visit shapedbyfaith.com or visit the YouTube channel, Facebook, or Instagram. And now, here is Theresa Rowe.
Welcome to Shaped by Faith, where we shape our bodies and hearts for God's purposes. I have a special guest with me today. Her name is Mary Raley. She is, in my opinion, in other people's opinions, a big world traveler. And she's a fitness enthusiast who just completed the Way of St. James pilgrimage in Spain. And Mary, I'm so excited to hear all about your adventures, your trip, and what the Lord is doing in your life. So thanks for being a guest on Shaped by Faith.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is truly an experience of a lifetime that I just completed, and I just want to share it with people. I want them to know that they could do the same thing that I did. I'm just an ordinary person who decided that I wanted to take on an adventure, be challenged, and this is where the Lord took me, to the Way of St. James. So I went, I'm back, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk about it.
I don't think you're ordinary, Mary. Just letting you know. No, you're not. Mary's also in some of my fitness classes with Shaped by Faith, and that's how we met. So I'm so honored to know you and to share your story as well. So let's start though, Mary, before the walk. Okay. So let's back up a little bit and let's tell us about your career in the medical profession and why you were so passionate about it and choosing that career.
So I'll have to admit, I was a nurse, or I still am a nurse, but my career spanned almost 50 years. So that kind of gives you a window into how long I've been taking care of patients. I started out as an emergency department nurse, kind of stayed in that field for most of my career. The last 20 years of my career, I moved into the trauma arena, basically, and was still taking care of patients, but more than anything, I was educating. So I was able to have a program started at the hospital where I was working in Evansville at a trauma center. And I just felt that that was what I was called to do. After all those years of taking care of trauma patients, now it's time for me to teach other people how to take care of trauma and to also just learn about injury prevention, because trauma is a result of injury. So I spent a lot of time teaching injury prevention and just being able to stay connected to the healthcare world, but still do something in my later years that probably wasn't as hard on my body as working 12-hour shifts.
That's a long shift. And we all appreciate nurses and those in the medical profession. We really do. Mary, what was the most rewarding part about being a nurse and an educator?
So the most rewarding part about being a nurse, I would have to say, would be those lives that you touched, either at the patients or the families. And I still remember those times when patients would come up to, or even patients would come back and visit you and say, "Hey, look at me now. Thank you so much for taking care of me." But then the hugs and the times that you spent with patients and their families, because they're in a really critical time in their life and they're trying to, make it through as best as they can. And so we're there to take care of the patients, take care of the families, and just, be that person who they can be confident in, and you just know that you're doing something that's going to benefit the patient and the family. So there's so many. I mean, you think about 50 years, gosh, there's a lot that happens in 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of patients that you remember. I mean, there are still patients who I remember from 30 years ago that, come to mind, and I'll think about them from time to time. So it's just the education part is just a way of giving back, a way of giving knowledge to new nurses and new doctors. I mean, I ran a program that was a trauma program for physicians, and I didn't teach the physicians, but I actually made sure that the classes were held and that we had quality instructors. And so it's a rewarding experience all the way around.
Now, you've always been active, it seems. As a nurse, you're super active. I mean, you'd have to be as a nurse. You're active now, but has that always been the case? Have you always taken care of your body?
So that's a really interesting question because, people say that you can start at any point in your life and get
Mhm.
in shape. Well, you probably can, but I felt like that if I was going to make this body last, I needed to start early on. So I think back and even into my 20s, I can still remember. That's when I started running. I thought, I
Mhm.
can run. I love to run. I remember my first half marathon thinking, oh my gosh, this is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I ended up doing 3 half marathons, that year. So it was like, okay, so that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. But then just continuing to be active, and I took up bicycling, and I love the outdoors. So I never was a hiker
Mhm.
until I retired, and I thought, you can't really ride your bike in the winter, so I need to
Right.
find something else to do. So I started hiking and found out that I loved hiking. So hiked every trail I could find around here and started traveling to hike. So, going to Spain and hiking was kind of like, okay, that's the next step, I guess. I've hiked in Davis County. Now it's time to go somewhere else.
That's one big step. And you also clog, right?
Right, right. Yes, I took up clogging about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and absolutely loved it. And a lot of it was just for the social
Mhm.
aspect of it. You meet some really great people when you're clogging, and of course, Barry Lanham is just a jewel. He's
Oh,
just
yeah.
so wonderful to teach those classes. And I thought, wow, this is really a lot of fun. So I've just continued to do that, and it's just me trying to stay busy and stay active. My
Mhm.
children are all grown. They live out of Owensboro now. So I spend a lot of time just staying busy with activities like that. And also I know it's going to benefit me in the long run. If I stay
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about your traveling because you travel a lot now, and I follow you on Facebook. And of course, we talk about it in person when you're in classes. You are a world traveler. I mean, you've been to a lot of places. So, did you travel before you retired, or did you wait until after you retired?
So I retired in 2022. So starting about 2013, that was when I took my first sort of international trip. And
Okay.
I didn't go that far. I just went to the Dominican Republic. But that was a big step for me. Got my
Hmm.
passport and I was ready to go. So over the course of the last 10 years, I have traveled at least once or twice a year. Not always international, but a lot of
Hmm.
international. But the pandemic kind of shut me down for a while, so I couldn't do
Right.
much traveling then. But yeah, I find places that interest me that I'd love to go and visit. So I'll either sign up with a group, and I may go as a solo traveler. I might not know a single person in that entire group when I sign up. But it's easy to get a roommate once you sign up for a travel experience, and you just go. And so a lot of my travel though has been based on around faith-based travel. So
Mm-hmm.
for instance, I went to Israel. I wanted to see the Holy Land. So that was a faith-based trip. Oh, I signed up for that trip and actually
Right.
knew several people that were on that trip. I've been, other trips are because they're just sounded like really cool places to go. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to do different types of travel. So I don't just want to do one kind. I want
Yeah.
to take a hike or go for a cruise or do something like that. So that's sort of how my travel experiences have evolved is based upon what presents itself.
That's really interesting. And the fact that you go on some of these trips alone. I know I've talked to you about that before, and I think that's really brave. I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?" So that's
It's really
interesting.
not that hard. And I've actually I did a couple of solo trips just stateside. one week or 1 week I decided I wanted to go zip lining and
Wow.
rappelling. And so I
Why
found
not?
why not? I found the company in North Carolina, signed up for it. They taught me how to zip line, went
Wow.
rappelling. Just kind of cool things to do. I've never been afraid to step out there
That is
and
awesome. Okay, let's take a real quick break. Then we're going to talk about your pilgrimage. Okay, so everyone stay tuned for more Shaped by Faith coming up next. Welcome back to Shaped by Faith. Mary Raley is my guest today, and she is a world traveler. And we're going to talk about, Mary, the pilgrimage that you just took and went on, which was huge. So I can't wait to hear all about it. But what interested you in that pilgrimage to Spain?
so probably 10 or so years ago, looking through travel brochures, I came across this Camino de Santiago,
Hmm.
and thought it, and it really sounded intriguing. Of course, I'm always looking for something to challenge me, and I thought that sounds interesting, but I didn't think about I didn't think about walking 500 miles. I mean, I really didn't know how long it was at the time. And so I kind of kept that little thought in the back of my head. And around 2022, my brothers started talking about the Camino de Santiago. And I said, I want to do that. I mean, that's been something that's been on my bucket list forever. So we started thinking about it. And both of my brothers who went on this trip with me, both of them had daughters getting married
Ah.
in 2023. So it was
Hmm.
like, well, we can't do it in 2023. Let's just kind of push it to 24. So we actually started planning it in 23, trying to think about when we were going to do this. And in January or so of 24 of this year, we said, okay, we're going to do it. And we picked a date when to start. We'd all done our research, kind of looked at when was the best time to travel, and knew that we either needed to do it in the spring or in the fall because we didn't want to
Mm.
do it during the hot summer months. So
Right.
that's when we decided to leave, and we had a guidebook, the John Brierley guidebook, that most people who walk the Camino use this, especially the Camino Frances, which is the one we walked. And
Hmm.
it broke it down into like 32 stages, and you could add rest days in there if you wanted to. So we kind of use that as sort of our guide to when to start and when to finish.
Okay, so you must be close to your brothers, right? To walk that many miles with them.
Well, the one brother is just a year younger than me. So,
Uh-huh.
he had recently retired. Both brothers had recently retired because you can't walk for 6 weeks if you're not retired.
Right.
So, or you have a really good job, or you can take off that long. So I am close to the one that lives here. He lives in Hancock County, so I see him pretty regularly, talk to him.
Okay.
The other one lives in Virginia, so I don't see him very often. And he's about 5 years younger.
Hmm.
But it was an incredible experience to get to spend that time with him because I hadn't spent much time with him. I mean, he's in his 60s and here I am in my 70s, and we haven't lived together. We haven't spent time together except for an occasional visit once or twice a year. So
I think
I
that's
guess,
really neat.
and we are a close-knit family. There's 13 of us, and now that our parents are both gone, we we try really hard to keep those family ties, and we try to make sure that we have opportunities to spend time
Mm,
together
that's
because
so good.
it's family is really what it's all about.
That's right. Okay, so how? I know you're fit and I know you take care of your body, but we're talking 500 miles. It's not like you're like, "Oh, okay, I'm just gonna," how did you prepare to walk that many miles? Did you do anything
Well,
in particular?
so other than coming to your classes, and occasionally I would do some yoga work, just to try to keep myself limber. But I really started out by just walking.
Mm,
I'm a walker. I do it pretty much every day, but I
right.
wasn't walking 10 miles a day. I was walking anywhere from 3 to 4 to 5 miles. That was kind of my limit. But I knew I was going to be walking anywhere from 13 to 15 miles a day. So I had to get out there and start upping the mileage. So I found trails that I could walk on, got a backpack, started walking with a little bit of weight. And then every time I'd go out, I'd add a little extra weight up into I think it was 16 pounds was what I ended up in my backpack with when I walked. And some days it may have not been quite that much, but you just find a place to walk and you start walking and you walk. And it's really about putting in the time. And I'll tell you, it takes time to walk 12, 14 miles a
Yes.
day.
Oh my goodness,
All day.
yes. Yes. And then there's the elements and the weather and you have to consider that as well. It's like you don't just walk on a sunny day, you walk and we're going to get into that more, but goodness gracious. Okay, so you mentioned your backpack. Are there any certain rules for this trip? Like, did you have to carry what you're going to wear and have, tell us about that.
So the intention for you is everything goes in your backpack. Now, there are transport services that'll take your bag from one hotel or hostel or albergue. They'll take it for you for a small amount, €6, something like that. But there's not a wrong way to walk the Camino. If you wanted to transport your bag every day, you could do that and just carry a day pack. If you wanted to carry your backpack every day, the full amount, you could do that too. The only kind of requirement is that you had to get stamps along the way. So each day you tried to get one of those credenzial stamps. You had a little book, and I don't have it with me, but you have a little fold out that has little squares, and in each one of those little squares you get a stamp. And when you get to Santiago, to the Compostela office, you're going to ask for a credencial, and that gives you or the Compostela and your credentials that you walked the Camino as proof. And then you get the certificate that said you completed it, because what's the point in walking 500 miles if you're not going to have proof you did it?
That's true. Yes, you would want to frame it.
Oh, you want to frame it. Mine's not framed yet, but it will be.
Maybe
But
we can work on that.
yeah, so you want to make sure when you leave your home that everything that you're going to need is in that backpack, because you're not taking luggage or anything, and if you wanted to take your poles, you had to have a way to be able to check those poles, because you can't take poles as a carry-on. So you learn things like that along the way, and you read a lot of books.
What did you focus on and meditate on? I mean, you're walking a lot of miles, and like you said, that takes a lot of time. So what were you thinking about during your walk?
So I guess one of the things that I learned as I was walking the Camino is that this is an opportunity to either walk alone or walk with someone else. There were lots of people on the Camino. If you wanted to be alone, all you had to do was say to whoever you were walking with, and there would be people who just walk up beside of you, Blanc Camino, where are you from? What is this your first time? And you just meet so many people. It's like a huge community once you get out there and you start walking, and you do discover a lot of things about yourself and other people. Yeah. You discover that maybe I'm not really cut out for this, because there were days when I was like, I want to be done. I'm done walking. I don't want to do this anymore. But then there were days when you would see this beautiful countryside, and you'd walk through these little hamlets and these villages, and you would think, this is so beautiful. You'd go to a church and walk inside, and you'd just be amazed by the beauty of just being in those churches and being with these people. And I've made a list of terms or words that kind of stick in my mind when I think about the Camino. And I think of it was magical. A lot of ways it was just magical. It was exhilarating at times. It was really profound, the things that you learned about yourself and the things you learn about other people.
Hmm.
But I felt like it was really, I came away from it with an appreciation for the simple things.
That's
And when I
good.
say simple things, I mean food. There were days when I walked and walked and walked, and I thought, is there not another restaurant around here anywhere? I am so hungry because you get hungry walking.
I bet.
I was so grateful for a bed. I mean,
Yes.
it didn't matter. I slept in 34 different beds,
Oh my
but
goodness.
it was fine. I was happy. I had a bed. A shower. You don't know how wonderful a shower feels after you've been out on the trail all day. And then to actually get a chance to wash your clothes and put on some clean clothes, that was really,
That would
really
be good. Mary, let's take a real quick break, okay? Because we want to hear more about your trip. So everyone stay tuned for more Shape by Faith coming up next. Welcome back to Shape by Faith. And Mary Raley is my guest. And she walked the Camino, which is like 500 miles. And so, Mary, you were talking about it and telling us about it. And you were talking about, being thankful for the simple things, which we all should realize, every single day we should be thankful to God for those simple things like food and where we're staying. So let's talk about the food. So how did that work? Did you have to bring your own food? Did they feed you?
So the Camino Frances is very well developed. It's the most popular of all the Camino routes. And so there are probably hundreds of people every single day that are joining the Camino. So it's not like you're ever by yourself. It's very safe, very well marked. I would recommend anybody to walk it. A lot of people, especially women, were doing this by themselves. They were solo walkers,
Mm.
but you just never felt alone. The food at first, it was like, oh, this is good. This is interesting. Then you realize after a while that it's very industrialized. They're trying to feed hundreds of people every single day in these little tiny villages, in these
Yes.
little hamlets that they're going through. So I was lucky and fortunate to have food some days because, if 30 pilgrims walk into a little tiny restaurant or a little tiny pension or something, and they're looking for food. How do these poor Spaniards feed all of us? So
Right.
I was very grateful. So there was a lot of potatoes, and I don't eat eggs. So this tortilla that most people would eat, I couldn't eat. So I ate
Mm.
a lot of ham sandwiches. And
Oh,
honestly,
no.
I haven't had a ham sandwich since I've been home.
I bet you haven't.
If you got into a city that was a fairly good sized city, there would be lots of great restaurants, and so I had really good food in certain places, and some of it was kind of so-so. So, I took little protein bars with me, but you can't take very many, so you would find them along the way, little grocery stores, and you would be okay. I mean, you would find food eventually, but some days it was a long time.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you also let me know that you sprained your ankle early in the pilgrimage. So how did you manage the walk with a sprained ankle?
So it was hard.
I bet
Um,
it
I
was.
lived on a lot of anti-inflammatory drugs for a while. I mean, you had to take care of your feet. I didn't get a single blister, which I have a friend who just returned from a 2-week Camino and was told that he had many blisters on his feet as a result of his Camino.
Mm.
I don't know what the difference was. I really focused on my shoes and then making sure that I had, take was using the lamb's wool and protecting them the way you should. And if you do your research, you learn, kind of what are the things that are really important, and your feet are the most important thing. So that sprained ankle was a bit challenging. I had an ankle brace that I bought once I was over there, and a foot brace, and that helped. But there were days that it hurt really bad, and there were days that I was okay. Occasionally I would have to cut my walk in half and would pick up a taxi to finish it out because I
Hmm.
couldn't walk the rest of the way. So you're no less a pilgrim if you have to take a taxi. I learned that it's okay, but for the most part, I walked the majority of the days, every single day. There was one day that I had to take a taxi because there was no beds at the end where we were staying. And if I
Mhm.
didn't get there by a certain time, I wasn't going to get a bed to sleep in. So it was raining, pouring down rain. So I just took a taxi and met my brothers there.
I would too.
Yeah. They were
So,
faster walkers than I was.
yeah. Oh, okay. So they walked ahead of you. So, what were some of the greatest benefits of going on this pilgrimage for you?
Well, I learned that I'm stronger than I think I am.
Mhm.
I learned that you need patience. You need to be humble. I started out thinking, man, I can do this. I'm in great shape. But I learned real quick that, yeah, there are days when I was tired. I was exhausted. I was ready to go home. My feet hurt. I just
Mhm.
wanted, I just wanted to be done. But then you realize that no, I'm here for a reason. I'm going to finish this. So you just keep on trudging ahead. And I'll have to say that it was definitely worth the benefit, because the moment I walked into the square in front of the cathedral, I just was so emotional. I mean, you're just overcome with joy and with this profound sense of accomplishment. And you're so grateful that God helped you walk this way, because I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to do it had it not had the faith and the belief that, God would help me make it through this. I prayed a lot. I mean, there were days when I just prayed, help me get up this hill, help me get over this mountain. And that's what I think helped me more than anything, especially with my sprained foot, to make it
Mhm. Well, that
in.
was a big challenge. So, Mary, would you do something like this again?
Absolutely.
Okay, maybe you should take a group with you since you're now experienced in this and
Well,
invite others to join you. That would be interesting.
so I'll tell you this one thing, Teresa, is that the day that I ended the Camino, I thought, okay, I'm one and done. I'm not doing this again.
Mhm.
But now that I've gotten home and I thought about it, I've looked at the pictures, I've read my journal, and just kind of just gone back and remembered some of those things. I'm like, this was so amazing. Definitely, I would do it again. So,
Wow. Wow. Okay, so we want to follow you on your next adventure, okay? And maybe
absolutely.
we'll join you one of these times. I think that would be so interesting to be able to do that. So,
Mhm. Well,
um,
it was actually a lot of fun. Although I had people say to me, "Hope you're having a good time," and that would be one of those days when it would be raining, and I was walking through mud, and I'm thinking, "What part of this
yeah,
is fun?"
right. Thank you so much for sharing with us your trip, Mary. And I'm just so blessed to know you. And thank you for being the example. Take care of your body, have faith in God, and keep doing what God's calling you to do. But thank you so much.
Oh, well, you're most welcome. I can tell you right now that walking the Camino will leave a mark on you, and just for your entire life. I just don't think this feeling will ever go away.
No, I don't either. So, okay. So thank you again, Mary. And thank you for listening. I'm Theresa Rowe. Everyone have a blessed day. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Shaped by Faith with Theresa Rowe. Remember to visit shapebyfaith.com to find out more about workouts, the TV show, podcasts, blogs, Shaped by Faith products, and much more.